Display. Just verify you can see things. I think, well, you will be able to see things, right? Okay. Now, just to be sure, I'll stay here for a little bit and see what YouTube shows. Nothing? Oh, okay, track, sure. It works. This is a monstrosity. It's not taking up the full space. There's ample building to happen in the future. But for now, here's the track. This time I'll drive slightly more seriously. I'm trying to say that before I drove gingerly, partially because storage happens on my device, which are quite expensive. But now I'm dumping everything to YouTube, thanks. So subconsciously, I think I can just let myself more free. Study the car, you know, this is my Canyon car 2020, I designed from 2020. And for this year, I have a new skin for it. I mean, a new paint job for it. The top was evidently inspired by a figure in my paper, and you can see the seams, the car casts on the shadow. That means the geometry isn't well understood by the game engine, or just that I'm bad at what I do. I'm a hobbyist, what do you expect? Anyway, I'll talk about the car more as we go. For now, let's drive. Have you seen this kind of starts? Track 1 was called Untitled 30. I constructed this one in 2008 as the first pack of my tracks in TrackMania Nations, a free game from that deal. I broke my leg during that period, which means this is my only exposure to senses of speed for slightly over 3 months. I went back to school and aced the final exam that semester, so, you know, I'm happy. This worked. Okay. One signature feature of my primary school constructions are the lack of actual challenge, despite the fact the things look quite complicated. As I said, that coming up next is a speed check, where you have to be fast enough to survive. I'm proud that, you know, 10-year-old me thought about it. I wasn't fast enough. It's not hard either. We are on the transition into Untitled 20. A slightly more technical track. Pretty much featureless, other than the hole where track transitions happen. It was probably revealed to me in a dream. Let me do this. Ignore the collision. And this is the first time I built something that's meant for two cars to compete, as in there are two parallel tracks that run alongside each other. In this game you only need one, but I thought it was interesting aesthetically, or even when multiple players are racing, that would be fun to look at. Which, in my memory, never really happened in my experience. And these tracks were and have been quite exclusively used, if not by myself, a small range of friends, and never on a multiplayer server. They were all enjoyed in single player. This part of the dirt road is the only thing on this map that's not constructed by myself. It's after a whole evening of asking. My dad built that for me. And now we're dropping down to Forever Cruise 2, the first we'll see of the series. Forever because the tracks were built around the time TrackMania Forever were released. Cruise because they were lap-based tracks that, for this experience, I've cut open. They represent what I thought is the highest standard I can build something. And you might wonder why I have an unhealthy amount of checkpoints on my tracks. You know, you only need it once in a while for resetting. The answer might be surprising. It's that in the elevated blocks, only checkpoints and turbos come with a tube beneath them that allow you to connect them to a support structure. And somehow, being a future physicist, I thought I want to support everything. I make them look realistic. If you haven't figured out already, in TrackMania, the blocks themselves don't experience any kind of physics. Wherever you place them, they will stay there forever, even floating. Unlike the license plate I just dropped. Yeah, but then I wanted to hold them actually with some believable looking structure. This one is Matte Track. I didn't really have a better name for it. It was submitted to a track-making contest, and I got third place. That's not the most fun part. The most fun part is when the final, when people started playing these tracks, the world record very soon became like 30 seconds faster than I myself was. It's my own track, and you know, I'm content. I'm content now. And coming up next is my only intentional usage of a stunt built into the physics engine. TrackMania boasts what is known as a deterministic physics engine. That is, for the same output, for the same input, you get the same behavior. I think not all racing games are like that, and that's what makes this series unique to me. Coming up, Rallycross 1 that I've constructed during my time in Berkeley. The obvious question everybody has is, if you are in Berkeley, how do you have time to build a track? I do not precisely know the answer, except the fact I did. I built several tracks, about 5, but only 2 of them were in stadium, so those are the ones I'm presenting. The ring. You wouldn't believe how much of the car were defined parametrically, as in they were just mathematical curves wrapped around what's presumably a metal box. I don't precisely believe that's what they do in the industry. For me, it got the job down quickly. As I brag about physics, I see a floating block ahead of us. Okay, so that might not always be the case. Oh, actually, that one hovers. It's canon. It just has a hover engine, superconducting. This is Rallycross 2. The first time in my 10 years of TrackMania then that I just said, let's drive wherever. Even have a little pit stop. The car is completely silent because I disabled the engine noises the game assigns to every car. In my case, it's justified because it's intended to be a EV. Well, it's a bunch of pixels. That's what it is. For Cruise 1, this track was previously updated to work with TrackMania United in 2010, but which explains the presence of dirt on the TrackMania Nations track. But it's also the first time, well, it was the first Forever Cruise before I updated it. It's the first time I started building a track seriously with traps. That's a hole to the right. And there's another hole in front of us. We're smart, we should be able to fly across it, yeah. I think most of these blocks we see, even the Cinex or even the tubes, were laid back, were laid down by, you know, a kid 12 years ago. It's a strange way of time travel. I mean, they're just hexadecimal code that remain intact as long as the hard drive survives. But it is indeed an experience thing to see what I thought was entertaining and challenging. Well, for now it's mostly just entertaining. But yeah, that's the core emotion I'm trying to render, to convey with this effort. Look, it'll heard something fall off the car. I think we lost our right mirror. Because I imported the car myself, I have full creative control over what parts are allowed to break apart. And of course I went with the easiest choice, mirrors and license plates. This one is Interhouse 2. It was in a house, hence the name. I removed the enclosure because I want to make it aesthetically consistent. Broke my rear glass. This is my second effort of building something within space constraints, hence the twisties and speed checks. My spoiler too. Oh, that's purely aesthetic or decorative. Drop me out of here. We land at Forever Cruise 3. It's probably the simplest in the whole series, but enjoyable in a very interesting way. You'll see. I think you already see it. It's on the right. There's a giant wall ride with a consequence for failure. Well, okay, consequence. Not much consequence, but you know, a mild inconvenience. So, to me, that was like the most challenging thing I could think about in 2010. And naturally transitioning, this is Forever Cruise 4. Probably the highest standard of my track building efforts. As you can see, it's the first time I got comfortable with high elevations, building tracks on high up there. And it was an exhilarating lap ride before this one. In this playthrough, we're only showing about half of the original track because we need to segue somewhere else. Were these structures drawing something really from the air? Sadly no, just two circles. Speed check. If you're too fast, you get a haircut. Straight into the beginning sections of Forever Cruise 5, where the yellow and red inflatables are. I might fail. Why not? Okay, I bounced on the water. Forever Cruise 5 was originally one of the earliest tracks I've built. Its original name was Untitled 5. But stuck with it, adding new features that I learned from elsewhere. Eventually making this the track I spend the most time on. What am I doing? Can I turtle into the checkpoint? That's cheating, but necessary. In this playthrough, I'll cut this track in half. We'll go somewhere else in the middle. When the lights come out, that's when the game world is 6 p.m. I don't think we need to see the sun again. That is, I set the daytime to 30 minutes each. The intermission is called Real Racing. It was built again in 2008, so I don't think any copyright infringement was intended because the EA game of the same name hasn't been a thing. It has the main course broken into 4 tracks that run alongside each other, although I'm sad to admit the one to the left has the shortest overall length. It's also my first, probably, full pipe experience. Now that we are approaching the night, I really wanted to complain, maybe not to the Nadeo who isn't watching, presumably. Why doesn't the moon follow everything else in the sky? I understand the need for a logical source of light to ensure consistency of experience, but the moon shouldn't be held in the sky in the same position. It hurts me to see it. Every time I want to use TrackMania to generate some, real-looking footage, the moon just stares at you from where it shouldn't be. And it's kind of, if not sad, half-baked. Of course, I know I can define my own lighting parameters from scratch. If I want, I can have 2 suns even, but in order to use the stock dynamic daylight system, you have to endure the moon, which I don't want to. Ooh. Like a pro. I like these inflatables. For one, it took me almost forever to learn how to place them. You can't just place one block and expect it to be reasonably sized. You have to drag and, define a n by n by n block, essentially. And that took a while to learn. For one, the localization was horrible. The Chinese version did not tell me what it was. The icon didn't really show as an inflatable. It didn't look like a balloon to me. We're back to Forever Cruise 5 and onward. In this track there are also 2 branches that costs roughly the same amount of time. We're going on the one on the left this time. You see the seams on the shadow, but that's life. When my left mirror also falls off, we'll officially look like a Hot Wheels model. don't really know how much of these cyan neons define my own vision for the future, but I just assume I've seen them so many times, they do have a profound impact on me. Here's the only appearance of some of the new blocks coming up. It's a little jump block where it gives you impulse vertically. It makes the game more playful, I guess. Ooh, yeah, definitely. Can I? Oh yeah, I gotta go by the side. Rammstein. Can I? Okay, I can't. Sure, that worked. And that marks the finish of Forever Cruise 5. We are on another liminal space. I tend to use this place as a photo booth because you can see pretty much everything up here. And this little one is called Interhouse 1. Again, it was in-house. Nothing, you know, doesn't contain any exhilarating action, but to me it's another reasonable party track where anybody can pick up and play and probably get a time faster than my own. To the left was the Berkeley track number 2, and we are on another transitional space into the final track of the collection, Untitled 21. It doesn't have any remarkable features, but I'd say it looks the best in my 2008 collection. I've made it look the most compact and realistic. It also contains the stupidest construct in the whole experience. You'll see it. And that's the next quarter pipe. What's wrong with it, you see? The starting platform is higher than the ending platform. That means you can just jump there. Can I land on the floor? Land on the road. And this is the final challenge. There's no more for now. I mean, I made it pretty hard to extend it because the stop at present is cradled in this little space. That's the track. I'm not improving it again on camera tonight.